Our next segment is about to begin. Christiane, you beat me to it. Let me just quickly say that it is with a newsmaker who is a leader that has transformed and dominated global headlines over the last 12 months. He's altered the trajectory of his country's history. If you'll remember, 1 year ago, almost to the day, as we gathered here at the Doha Forum on the 8th of December 2024, Christiane, you were here. We got news that he led opposition forces and factions that toppled Syria's longtime leader, Bashar al-Assad. His ascent from militant commander to head of state marks one of the most dramatic and consequential shifts in recent Middle Eastern history. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President of Syria, Ahmed Al-Sharaa, who joins Christiane Amanpour for a Newsmaker interview.
Thanks, Gita.
See you. I'm talking and everyone is, but you were good. But it's funny how people, yeah,
the president is not here. Say it again.
We await the arrival of President Ahmed Al-Sharaa of Syria. He should be making his way to this hall any moment now. Christiane Amanpour waiting for this discussion to begin.
Prowling.
Give us a preview.
No.
What do you intend to ask?
Oh, no.
You're keeping your cards close to your chest. So we will wait, but he should be coming in.
Yeah, I
any
know
moment,
he was
Christiane.
waiting, so he'll be
So
here.
please, obviously, don't go anywhere. This conversation will begin, hopefully, in the next few seconds. Hopefully.
Hi. Sharaa. Gita.
Do you want to chat? Do you want to chat?
No, I just want them.
Oh.
I just.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Syrian President, Ahmed Al-Sharaa.
How are you? Please. Just going to get mine in there. All right, everybody. Mr. President, welcome. Everybody's looking forward to hearing from you. It's almost exactly a year ago that we were all gathered here and we heard the news that your forces were storming towards Damascus and that President Assad at the time fled. So it caused a bit of an earthquake in this room and in international communications and policy. So here we are 1 year later. You, Mr. President, have brought Syria out of its international isolation. You've been here, you've been there, you've been in the White House, you've been at the UN, you have been all over the place. Let's start by asking you whether you believe that Syria is fully integrated into the international community, and whether you have hope that your economy is on the way to being fixed.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, first off, thank you for having me. Quite frankly, Syria has been through a number of serious phases over the past 100 years, particularly over the past 60 years. Syria was living in a strong and extreme isolation, and it was living through a stifling economic embargo. The policies of the former regime actually prompted the majority of regional players and international players to shy away from Syria, and as a result, the world was isolated from the Syrian reality, and Syria was isolated and deprived of the rest of the world. This time last year, yes, you were at the Doha Forum, and we were getting ready to storm Damascus, and we probably changed the plans for the Doha Forum back then as we were advancing militarily on Damascus. And after roughly 2 days from today, we declared that we had entered Damascus. Over the past year, Syria managed to regain a large number of its regional and international relations and ties, and I think we have gone beyond the rapprochement phase, and everything we promised, I believe that we've kept since we entered Damascus, and this has managed to build trust between us and a large number of regional international players. I believe we are definitely on the right path. Every single step we have taken has helped the national interest of Syria, and we have regained our regional and international status, which is quite significant, and we went from being a country that exported crises to a country where we have an actual hope of delivering stability and being a living model for regional stability in the region, particularly if we look at the tensions that are happening across the region. And I believe the world has quickly realized this opportunity, and the world has started working with Syria immediately in order to benefit from Syria's status when it comes to regional stability and Syria's influence over stability in the region.
Surrounded by a load of countries which potentially may not have any interest in your stability. Let's say Israel. I've talked to several officials here and before I got here. As we know, Israel continues military operations on your country, and it has demanded, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, sort of a demilitarized zone all the way from Damascus to the border. What is your reaction? Because there are those who don't believe that Israel has an interest in a unified Syria. What do you think Israel's objectives are in your country?
Israel, in managing its crises in the region, often exports crises to other countries and tries to run away from the horrifying massacres it committed in Gaza, and it does so by attempting to export crises. Israel has become a country that is in a fight against ghosts. They justify everything using their security concerns, and they take October 7th and extrapolate it to everything that is happening around them. I believe that since we arrived in Damascus, we sent positive messages regarding regional peace and stability, and we've said very frankly that Syria will be a country of stability, and we are not concerned in being a country that exports conflict, including to Israel. However, in return, Israel has met us with extreme violence, and Syria has suffered massive violations of our airspace, and we've been victim of over 1,000 airstrikes and over 400 incursions, the last of which was the massacre that Israel committed in Beit Jinn that left over 25 people dead. So what we try to do is convince powerful regional players and powerful international players. The entire world today supports Syria in its demands when we demand Israel to go back to the pre-December 8th lines. We have also been very adamant about respecting the 1974 agreement. This agreement has held on for over 50 years. So one way or another, we can call it a successful agreement. And messing with this agreement, even though it has received international unanimity and Security Council approval, and attempting to seek other agreements such as a buffer zone or something similar, I believe these attempts will send us into a serious and dangerous place, and we don't know what the result may be. They could be successful or not. So I believe the best thing would do is to commit to the 1974 agreement that has held on for so long. As far as a demilitarized zone is concerned, let us deconstruct that. How will it be? Who will protect that zone? Israel often says that they are afraid of coming under attack from southern Syria. So who will be protecting this buffer zone or this demilitarized zone if the Syrian army or the Syrian forces aren't going to be there? So there are currently negotiations, and the United States is participating and engaged in those negotiations. And like I said, all countries support an Israeli pullout to the pre-December 8th lines, and everybody is okay with addressing logical and reasonable security concerns. And that's the key word here, reasonable security concern, in order to make sure that everyone is safe and secure. And just a reminder, it is Syria that is being attacked by Israel and not the opposite. And therefore, who has more right to claim a buffer zone and a pullout?
About some of the concerns from inside your country. Look, I was at an event the other night for Syria in London, and one of the main speakers said the fall of Assad marks a new dawn for Syria. It's not just the end of our struggle, it is the beginning of a different chapter, one where we are finally allowed to hope, to imagine recovery, and to speak openly about the country we want to build. So let's speak openly, because it's not just the Israeli attacks and other neighbors that you have issues with, but you have an issue with internal unity. And there seems to be tribal, minority, fragmentation, and that's a kind word, and a lot of fear inside your country. So, as you know, you need the US Congress to lift the Caesar Act. That's the last of the very, very important sanctions. And after what happened in Sueda and to the Alawites, etc., there was a pullback. And I want to know whether this is really important enough for you to fix and to try to really do what you said you wanted to do, which was unify your country, and how you think you're going to do that.
First off, I disagree with the use of the term fear, because there are millions of people who are taking to the streets spontaneously. They have been doing that over the past 2 weeks and celebrating the fall of the regime. Are those people afraid? On the contrary, I believe Syria is living through its best days. We are talking about a country that's aware, that's conscious, and there is not a single country in the world without domestic issues, and there's not an authority in the world that receives unanimous approval from its people. As you're very well aware, for roughly 100 years ago, modern Syria was established, and we went through a number of phases, particularly the pre-independence phase, and then a number of coups d'etat, followed by the regime that ruled over Syria over the past 60 years. And so, over the past couple of years, the Syrian people simply did not know each other well. During the revolution, there was a lot of mixing and mingling amongst the various factions and communities in Syria, and we actually inherited a lot of conflicts and a lot of differences from the old regime, because they used to use confessions against each other. However, ever since we took over, we actually resorted to pardoning a large number of people and a large number of factions so that we can build a sustainable, safe and secure future for the Syrian people, and so that we can secure another opportunity for the Syrian people to get to know each other. In order to do that, we engaged a lot of factions and communities in the national dialogue and in the government. So a lot of measures that we did helped calm the situation down, because in a lot of countries that see conflicts, there's the post-conflict cycle that often lasts longer than the war. So we tried to avoid all of this by taking a series of measures, and the majority of these measures were successful. However, let us also be realistic. Syria is Syria required to obtain 100% unanimity, the Syrian government? This doesn't occur even in advanced countries that are living through relative stability. However, Syria has moved from one regime to another that does not resemble it at all, following the success of a popular revolution. Of course, there were people who were damaged because they were benefiting from the former regime, and we are trying to manage things. Over the past year, we delivered a number of significant achievements. Of course, there were some issues that are completely unacceptable to us, and we are working on holding those who caused them and who perpetrated them accountable. However, once again, I believe that Syria is on a positive path. It is tending towards stability. We also have economic growth that is gradually taking shape, and we are seeing the first indications of this economic growth. Additionally, the service environment has improved over the past year. People were receiving an hour and a half of electricity per day, and now we have reached 12 to 14 hours per day, and hopefully this year we will be self-sufficient in terms of electricity, and we're constantly working on developing our services. So we are moving to a completely different economic environment, and I believe the investments that we managed to attract will greatly help us achieve stability. That is why we asked the United States, and we sat down with Congress members a number of times to convince them to lift the Caesar law, which was imposed on the former regime, given the crimes that they perpetrated against the Syrian people. And therefore, today, this law should not be a tool to starve the Syrian people again. And there was a great understanding, and I believe we're at the 95% point, and the current U.S. administration under President Trump's presidency supports lifting the sanctions imposed on Syria, as you've all seen, and I believe this applies to the majority of the world's countries. And when we talk about the Syrian people, we're talking about 25 million people, and even Syria has great strategic importance and influence on regional stability, and this should not be linked to some people who are not convinced when it comes to lifting sanctions on Syria. So I believe we're headed towards the lifting of sanctions. This is the wise thing to do, and this is as a result of the interest linking Syria to the rest of the world.
Some of the minorities who are afraid. So in March, and you said just now atrocities, in March more than 1,400 Alawites, mostly civilians, were killed along the coast. The UN called it possible war crimes. In July, there were hundreds of Druze and people killed as well, and many, many displaced. Can you tell those people from this seat what you will do to make them feel part of a unified Syria and potentially not make them pay for being supporters of the previous regime? I know how these things happened. I was in Iraq when there was the US intervention. I saw what happened on the ground when one party felt victorious and another party didn't. And I just wonder whether there's a sense of triumphalism maybe amongst Sunni Muslims in Syria, and whether you think that you really can knit the country together. I know you said 100% is not possible, but in terms of law, order, rights, and what you feel about making them all part of a new Syria.
First of all, Syria has defined peaceful coexistence throughout the years. And in the first event, 1,400 years ago, people were living in Syria very peacefully. So we can give lessons to the world and teach the world how to coexist peacefully. Today, we cannot say that this revolution, that the revolution in Syria was a Sunni revolution. All the components of the Syrian society were part of the revolution. The Christians were affected by the previous regime. Even the Alawite had to pay the price of them being used by the former regime. So I do not agree with the definition or with saying that all the Alawites were supporting the regime. Some of them were living in fear. They were fearing the toppling, or what will happen if the regime is toppled. When we went into Alawite villages, we saw a lot of poverty and problems. In fact, we have inherited a big problem where all of us are victims. It is a big problem that we need to deal with very wisely. There were confrontations. It is true. We have established a truth-finding committee. We know that there are some crimes that were perpetrated in the coast or in Suwaida, as you said. But this is, of course, not this is a negative thing, but despite the atrocity of what happened, and we are not justifying anything here, I insist on the fact that we do not accept what happened. But I say that Syria is a state of law, and the law rules in Syria, and the law is the only way to preserve everybody's rights. I do not like defining Syria as a place where several sects and religions live. We have legal experts, physicians, engineers. We have a lot of talent. So it is only normal for us to be a state of law. It is not a developing country. Maybe it is poor economically, but it is very rich in culture. So in reinforcing the rule of law, the principles of law, reinforcing also the role of institutions to build the new Syria is the way to guarantee everybody's rights and the rights of all minorities. We did enter into a dialogue with all the parties, and we tried to instill the spirit of participation and not just dividing quotas between the different religions and sects. So we are with the participatory approach to avoid what happened in Iraq. As you rightly mentioned, it is not healthy to divide authorities among different religions and sects. I think that governments and authorities should be formed by experts, by technocrats, regardless of their ethnicity or religion. So today you have several parties represented in the Syrian government in a participatory approach, as I said, and I think this is very healthy. Maybe Syria is proving once again that it is going in the right path. Maybe others will learn from us how to deal with crises and wars, the aftermath of them.
I also think you have a lot of fans out there. I've spoken to some nationals, I won't name them up here, who say they want to learn from you. So I'm going to ask you another question. You are, I guess, the first Democrat with a small d who says you want to have participatory government, you want to have rights for everybody, you want to be a president for everybody, and you want Syria to be a nation of laws and civil society. That's hard. It's very hard. There are a lot of people who are wondering whether you do actually, because you know in this part of the world some people get into power and stay forever. Do you see elections as a means to an end for your nation, or is it about, you know, staying for a long time and consolidating all the power you can? I'm just saying because that's what happens in this part of the world a lot.
Syria is not a tribe. Syria is a country, a developed country with rich ideas. Of course, there are differences, as is the case with many authorities around the world. We know that the authority is always linked to the culture of the country and what happens before this authority came into power. The Syrian system is based on elections. Maybe elections were used in the wrong way, let's say, in the previous times, and I do not believe we are ready right now to undertake elections, parliamentary elections, but still we did this in a way that is compatible with the transition phase. And I think that the principle of people choosing their leaders is a basic principle. It is even a part of our religion in Islam. We rulers have to gain the satisfaction of the majority of people in order to rule properly. So this is what we believe in, and I think that this is the suitable path for Syria. I think that Syria should not be, or building Syria should not be linked to people or individuals, but rather institutions. This is a challenge for the 4 or 5 years to come, because we are rebuilding the country, rebuilding our laws, redrafting our laws, while relying on the rich cultural heritage of Syria that dates back to thousands of years. So I think that Syria will move forward on this path, and it is a healthy and good path. Building institutions in Syria will guarantee the continuity of the state, not relying on people, because a person can fall sick, they can die, so you cannot link a whole people to one person. That is very risky. Even developed countries that still have kingdoms today have their systems, their institutional systems. So it is not wrong for a country to be a kingdom, but Syria is in a different place. It is a republic. So whether it is a kingdom or a republic, the important part is to have an institutional system that does not rely on people.
Like a broad idea of when we'll have actually proper representative elections, like for a president or a prime minister. You say it takes a while, but how long would you say?
After the liberation of Damascus, we organized a national conference, and we have a declaration for the constitution as a result of this. This declaration, until we have a final constitution, gave the current president a mandate of 5 years, and then there will be elections. During these 5 years, many laws will be enacted, and the constitution also will be drafted during these elections, and it will be presented during this period, and it will be presented to the people. So the constitution, as you know, will be the main source of power. So I would say in 5 years. There's already 1 year that's gone, so we still have 4 years.
And finally, as you know, you have a past of being a terrorist. I mean, you worked for Al-Qaeda. What do you say to people in this room, in foreign capitals, about where your heart and your mind and your allegiance is now? We see that in parts of Syria, not only, the T word, but also the Islamic Caliphate word. Okay, there's no Islamic Caliphate in Syria. Women seem to be fairly liberated in quite a lot of the areas. Where do you see your history and how you deal with this country going forward in terms of the rights of women? What would you say to maybe some guests sitting in this room who have yet to fully empower, and some who absolutely deny women's rights?
أعتقد السؤال فيه كثير من
I think that the question has a lot of issues in it and contradictions, but still I will try to answer the question. Saying that I was a terrorist and judging me as a terrorist is politicized. You know that there are many politicized opinions today. Judging on people as terrorists need to be proven, because what is the definition of terrorism or of a terrorist? It's been 25 years of us hearing this word in the world, but there is a lot of confusion in understanding the word terrorist. Terrorists, in my opinion, are those that kill innocent people, children and women, and that use illegitimate means to harm people. If we try to extrapolate this description on several countries in the world, we find that the number of victims in Gaza, 60,000 people, most of them are innocent. The Syrian regime during or along 14 years has killed more than 1 million persons in Syria, and until now you have 250,000 disappeared persons with their destinies unknown, or their fate unknown. We have liberated all prisons, but we still do not know anything about these people. And this person is not called a terrorist, or this regime is not called a terrorist. We saw wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq. All of those that were killed were innocents. And it is the killers that describe others as terrorists. So I think that after 25 years, people are now more aware about who is a real terrorist and who deserves to be called a terrorist.
أما على الصعيد الشخصي
Now, on a personal level, I have never harmed a civilian. I fought on several fronts, and I fought for more than 20 years with honor. On the contrary, I used to put myself in danger and all of those with me in danger so that civilians are not put in danger. And the last battle that you saw while you were sitting here in Doha, and you said that the agenda was deviated, I think that it was a merciful battle. Have you ever seen a terrorist that prepares a whole plan for 11 days to enter big cities like Aleppo, Deir, Raqqa, Damascus, Latakia, Tartus, and Suwaida without one person being harmed? We were in a military battle that should normally kill people or lead to people dying, but there's nobody that left these villages and these cities. We broke the doors of prisons with our own hands. We are the ones that liberated people from the Saidnaya prison, where the bones of people used to be burnt with acid. However, dual standards sometimes change things, but I think that reality prevailed, or the truth prevailed at the end, and people now know that this description is not accurate. That is why I am no longer listed as a terrorist by the Security Council.
And you'll guarantee women's rights, that's a separate question, but women are fully empowered.
No.
There are a number of headlines that are being circulated, but women are empowered sort of automatically in Syrian communities. When we were in Idlib, we actually established a major university in the city, a major university with roughly 26,000 students, 2/3 of whom were women, and women were studying at those universities so that they could later join government institutions as employees or join the job market. So I believe Syrian women are empowered, their rights are protected and guaranteed, and we constantly strive to ensure that women are fully participating in our government and our parliament as well. And I believe you should not fear for Syrian women, fear for Syrian men.
Thank you very much indeed.
شكرا.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, President Ahmed Al-Sharaa. Thank you, Christiane, for this fascinating discussion and for weaving in some of these tricky questions that many here in the audience certainly may still have. It was good to hear President Al-Sharaa take on so many contentious issues about women's rights in the new Syria, about what the government has been able to achieve over the last year, and about his rise from militant to head of state. Now, we will pause for just a couple of minutes while we await the arrival of our next speaker. So please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.